Today's episode will be about the history and evolution of the computer keyboard. So let's start perhaps with the definition of a computer keyboard as given in books. A computer keyboard is a peripheral input device modeled after the typewriter keyboard, which uses an arrangement of buttons or keys to act as mechanical levers or electronic switches. Replacing early punched cards and paper tape technology, interaction via teleprinter-style keyboards have been the main input method for computers since the 1970s, supplemented by the computer mouse since the 1980s. Keyboard keys, buttons, typically have a set of characters engraved or printed on them, and each press of a key typically corresponds to a single written symbol. However, producing some symbols may require pressing and holding several keys simultaneously or in sequence. While most keyboard keys produce letters, numbers, or symbols, characters, other keys, or simultaneous key presses can prompt the computer to execute system commands, such as the Control-Alt-Delete combination used with Microsoft Windows. In a modern computer, the interpretation of key presses is generally left to the software. The information sent to the computer, the scan code, tells it only which key, or keys, on which row and column, was pressed or released. In normal usage, the keyboard is used as a text entry interface for typing text, numbers, and symbols into application software such as a word processor, web browser, or social media app. Let us now turn to the various stages in the history of the computer keyboard. These stages have influenced the way it looks today. It all started with a typewriter. We owe the first device of this kind to a British engineer, Henry Mill, who in 1714 constructed a working model of such equipment. A working one, but not necessarily a useful one. Improvements allowing for effective writing had to wait more than a century and a half. In 1867 an American, Christopher Latham Sholes, came up with an idea to convert a theater ticket numbering machine in such a way that instead of numbers it could be used to write any text. He then constructed a typewriter with keys in 2 rows. As you may have noticed, the key with the number 1 and 0 is missing, but this was intentional. The letters I and O were used instead. Unfortunately, this keyboard layout caused frequent jams between adjacent letters, and the design of the first machines meant that letters were reflected on the side of the page not visible to the writer. Christopher Sholes noticed that letters in physical proximity were blocking and decided to analyze the English language in terms of the frequency of certain character combinations. These experiences led him to rebuild his keyboard so that letters that often occur next to each other in English words would be placed far apart. This is how the QWERTY layout was created, to which, over time, additional characters known today were added. The problem that Christopher Sholes solved with the QWERTY layout soon became obsolete. The mechanisms of typewriters were becoming more and more perfect, and several decades after the first one was constructed, the problem of jams was no longer relevant. It was under these circumstances that August Dvorak set to work, patenting the keyboard layout named after him in 1936. Dvorak's layout was optimized for fast typing in English. The letters that occur more frequently were allocated to the right, more able hand, and grouped inversely to QWERTY, so that the letter combinations that occur in words are also in physical proximity on the keyboard, with the most popular letters in the middle row. In Dvorak's original layout, the order of the digits was also notable: 753, 190, 2468. In the 1930s, new keyboard models were introduced that combined the input and printing technology of typewriters with the communications technology of the telegraph. In the years that followed, keyboard layouts such as the Colemak, developed in 2006, named after its creator, Shai Coleman, and the final letter K, referring to the Dvorak layout, were developed. The first computer keyboards were based on teletypewriters. These types of keyboards were very slow in transferring typed text to the computer. Everything changed with VDT technology. The keys could now send electronic impulses directly to the computer and save time. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, all computers used electronic keyboards and VDTs. In 2006, Colemak, named after its creator, Shai Coleman, and the final letter K, referring to the Dvorak layout, Colmac was optimized so that the fingers travel the shortest possible distance. When typing in English on a keyboard with this layout, the path of the user's fingers is 2.2 times shorter than in the case of QWERTY, and using letters from a single line, dozens of times more words can be written. I will now discuss the basic types of keyboards and their functions. Standard keyboard. The model created by IBM was based on typewriters, and this went beyond the influence of the market. So that the whole industry in one way or another produced broadly the same design or arrangement of keyboard keys, with slight variations in the number of keys, being 104 keys for American English and 105 keys for Latin. Another type is the ergonomic keyboard. This type of keyboard has a special character made to fit the natural shape of our body, with a curved V-shaped design and slightly smoothed keys to make it easier to press, making it ideal for long hours in front of the computer, avoiding certain injuries and pathologies that we can develop if we spend a lot of time in front of the computer. The possibility to increase productivity at work. Another type is the multimedia keyboard. Multimedia keyboards have the same conformation as the standard keyboard, but with the difference that above, below, or on one side, they have keys for reading, volume, brightness, direct access to emails, calculators, or other applications. Functional, and depending on the area in which you play, this keyboard may be optimal for you because it saves time by shortening some steps in your daily operations. Next type is the flexible keyboard. This type of keyboard is ideal for traveling and camping, and is often made of silicone, which makes it virtually waterproof, best for those who have to work in completely sterilized environments, as they can clean it regularly with alcohol or other disinfectants. The last type of keyboard I will discuss is the mechanical keyboard. This type of keyboard is usually preferred by many gamers and office workers. And they rightly prefer them because of their resistance. Some writers also prefer them because it speeds up the pace of each press. With letters written halfway through and you don't have to press the key all the way down to activate it, unlike slightly more modern rubber keyboards. Of course, there are other types of keyboards such as capacitive keyboards, numeric keyboards, screen or touch keyboards, etc. However, the types of keyboards I have discussed seem to be the most important. Thank you for listening. I hope that the material was interesting. Regards to all.